Welcome to the GSD with Jeni podcast, where we talk about how to overcome all the stuff that gets in the way of getting shit done. Imposter syndrome, fear, money, relationships, networking, building businesses. We're going to talk to experts, or as I say, mavens, that provide practical and tactical advice on how to GSD. I'm your host, Jeni Buchholz, founder and CEO of Haven Creative. Now, I started my business with $300 in a laptop and grew it to a team of Haven mavens serving clients around the world and generating over 7 figures in revenue. We were named one of the fastest growing companies in Charlotte and 2024 Crowns of Enterprise Woman-Owned Business of the Year, and I'm incredibly proud of the success we've had and to be among the 1% of woman-owned advertising agencies in the country. But I still need help too. So I started this podcast with the intent to dive deeper into the things that hold us back from achieving our goals. So thank you for joining me on this journey to GSD. Let's get started. Our guest today built an impressive career by being a lifelong learner and innovator. Jake Petersen, the VP of Product and Marketing at Warren Group, which creates, manufactures, markets, and sells products under the Warren, FabForce, FabTech, and Factor 55 brands, has had the opportunity to work for iconic brands such as Boeing, Polaris, Nautilus, Bowflex, and more. Today, we'll learn more about Jake's passion for people, company culture, and communication to GSD. Welcome to the show, Jake.
Good morning. I'm happy to be here.
So looking forward to chatting with you because we had a great conversation in the past about company culture and communication and all those things. But before we dive into that, you've had a pretty impressive career with very iconic brands. How did you end up where you are today?
It's interesting. So if you go back to when I started in college, I thought I wanted to be an architect. I had no idea kind of where I was going to land. And I got a football scholarship to a college that had engineering. And they said, oh, you should go into engineering. And so I was like, okay. So it's close to architecture. So I ended up going through college, getting a degree in mechanical engineering, and then I got a job with Boeing right out of college. And I found I loved creating. I loved the process of creating products, creating parts, designing. I loved that stuff. But throughout my career, I found that there was this role called product management. They were representing voice of customer, and they were making the wrong decisions. So on the engineering side of things, we were think about the tail, where, you need to plan something out years ahead of time to go in a certain direction. You can't just, change directions on a dime. So I went into product management, which kind of straddles the engineering and the marketing world, really representing voice of customer, and progressed my career through product management. And then in my current role, my boss, the VP of marketing, retired. So I took over the whole marketing team. So it's been a very interesting evolution. And then kind of to close the loop, I had been out of, pure engineering roles for probably the last, 10 years. And then just recently, I took over the engineering team for the Warren Inc. as well. So I have the marketing team and the engineering team and the product management team now. So kind of close the loop. I had the experience. So it was, it's fun. I love it. I love the whole process of getting voice of customer and developing.
It's fascinating to me, though, because engineering and the creative world of communication seem so different sides of the brain, completely opposite.
They are. It's not a lot of people. It's a rare person that can kind of stand in both of them. And that's a lot of times with the really good product managers, that's what they can do. They can talk to the engineers, and they can also talk to the marketers. They understand the strength of the story, but they also understand that to bring that story to life, you have to do all this development in the feature set and turn those stories and those needs into actual features or attributes of your product.
Okay, I really love that you just brought that up because story and the brand is so important, but actually executing on that story is even more important because otherwise you're just saying words that have no meaning. And you found this way to bridge the gap, bust those silos, if you will, through communication.
Absolutely. And so if there's anything I've learned on communication over the years, it's over communicate. So in the development side, when I was in that environment, in my current role, just because I get tired of saying something again and again and again, that doesn't necessarily mean it's sunk into my audience or to my team or whoever I'm talking to. It's so important to have that clean, consistent story that the team can remember and that they can carry it out to customers or to team members or whatever, and then just to keep beating that drum. It's so important.
Yes, beating the drum. I think, what is the saying? You've got to tell people 7 times.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I think for some it's more. And especially in today's environment, right? When you're not face to face, it could be a Teams meeting or a Zoom meeting, and you don't know if they're paying attention, especially if their camera isn't on. So you might tell that story to them 4 times. And then finally, when they're paying attention or for some reason it resonates with them, it will sink in.
Oh, yes. We are so distracted nowadays. It's hard to not. I feel like I have attention deficit, which I didn't have before because there is so much media coming at me constantly. And even in emails, the team called me out once. They're like, you have to read the whole email. I realized I skimmed the headlines. So I change how I write my emails just to make sure I'm hitting the key points to people so that it's not too much information. Yeah. You brought up something about the different teams and different dynamics. So you're working with an engineer personality, then you're working with the creatives. Do you have to communicate differently with the different groups, or how do you find a way to communicate effectively with different personalities?
I don't know if I necessarily communicate differently. I think, like I said, consistency makes a big difference. I guess if I think about it, when you're talking to an engineer team, you still want to emphasize those key customer needs. You want that link all the way through, right? Like, what problem are you solving for the customer? But for the marketing team, it's about speaking to that customer about how you solve the problem. And for the engineering team, it's figuring out what the product does to solve the problem.
Sounds like to me you're tapping into
kind of the what's in the house, so to speak.
Yes. So you're tapping really into what that department is best in the world at, engineering something or marketing something, and their purpose behind what they do. So they get that buy-in. To execute.
Yeah, and then it translates into telling someone how they're going to use your tool or your product to complete a task versus how that tool is going to be used to complete the task, if that makes sense. It's all about just telling the story of how it relates to the customer or how it relates to them.
So going back to managing multiple personalities and teams across the country on 4 brands, how do you build a culture of innovation and accountability?
So the key is to, first off, have good team members. I'm really big about bringing in really good team members, make it very clear what they're accountable for, and then getting out of the way and letting them do their job. It's amazing how many senior level leaders I've worked with that can't grasp that concept, that want to get into the weeds, that don't trust their team, that don't put the metrics in place to show if their team is succeeding or not. So that's key. And I've been burned in the past. I give my team a lot of leeway, a lot of rope, and sometimes that's burned me. But for every time it's burned me, there's probably 10 examples of where that team member has went above and beyond and blew my expectations away. So I personally think it's the right approach. So that's one, is having good team members. The other thing is just making sure what they're supposed to be doing. What does winning look like for them? I read a book a couple of years ago called American Icon. It was about Alan Mullally's turnaround at Ford. And I loved his BPR concept because it's just so simple. Once a week, or it could be, you could vary it. It could be, more frequent than that. The team sits down, 1 pager, am I winning or not? Like, in my area of responsibility, am I doing good? Am I doing bad? I always tell my team on Friday afternoon, look back at the week, and do you feel good? Did you win for the week? And how do you represent that in metrics? So my current staff does that, and it's been phenomenal. It's a great tool for me to see kind of how things are going in each area, where I need to provide help or assistance or guidance. And it also gives the team an opportunity to say, hey, I'm over my skis here. I need some help, or we're making progress here. It's kind of an evolution trying to get those metrics right, but just having that conversation has been really, really good. It's been a very valuable tool for us.
Yeah, I think what you just said is coming back to creating expectations and a way to measure success. And this is what winning looks like, which all stems from clarity and communication.
Absolutely. Yep.
It seems like a no-brainer, but why is it that so many leaders don't effectively communicate?
I don't know. It's funny. And you're on the right track when you step back and say, well, this is just common sense.
Right.
And then you think, well, why doesn't everybody do this?
Yes. But you know what I've heard, and I struggle with this, is like company culture is this kumbaya hand-holdy thing. And it sounds like fluffy and not important. maybe to key executives. I've run into this before, and I struggle to explain the value sometimes and how if you built this strong company culture, it does reduce turnover, which does impact the bottom line. What's your experience around company culture and creating, being able to get shit done more effectively because you have a strong team?
I think company culture is very important, and I've noticed it. I started my career at Boeing, and it was just a huge company. It was like working for the federal government. There was no culture there. And actually, I take a step back. There was a culture of innovation. There was a pride there at that time. This was 20, 25 years ago. There was pride there working on. They felt like they were doing cool shit. Like there was pride for people that worked there, right? And but there, in terms of like fun or accountability, and once you get down into the weeds, that wasn't present. Since then, other companies I've worked at, I've seen them take different steps towards culture. One company I worked at had a phenomenal fun culture. They played kickball. You know, they would do a big Halloween party. You know, it was all about, oh, this is the coolest place to work ever, right? They went out of business because they didn't, and it's not just because of the culture, but it is one of the symptoms because they didn't focus on their core competencies and their what made them a successful company and drive that back to the employees. They were focused more on the fun, the great place to work, and they kind of lost track of what their strengths were as a company. So where it's a fine line, you want to have fun, you want it to be a great place to work, you want people to have pride in the work, but you really have to tie it back to some key metrics like we are the best at, we are proud of this, we want to win, and this is how we're going to do it.
Love that you said that because I think sometimes people that come into an organization view culture as this is a place to have fun. And as leaders, we want to give that place to have fun, but we also have to run a business at the end of the day and we have to be productive. Right. And that's what keeps the ship afloat. So yeah, I completely agree with you that it's got to have both, a high performing culture. It's a team culture.
So I would say that winning is fun. So being accountable for something and doing really well at it, that's fun. That's fun to me anyway. And I think most people like that. Like, this is what I need to do in my job. This is what winning looks like in my job. And when you check those boxes, it feels pretty good.
It absolutely does. And I think it goes back to having clarity of expectation. People get really frustrated when they don't know what's expected of them or what, to your point, winning looks like. So being able to clarify that gives them that motivation and clarity of where they're going and how they can win. People often say that, oh, our company is so close, we're like a family, which gives me the ick because I feel like it's a team and I want to be on a high performing team. I want to win, to your point. And sometimes people need to sit on the bench and sometimes people need to be cut and traded to another team. Yeah. How do you view that, team or family?
I agree. There's always a lot of drama in a family.
Yeah.
Roles and responsibilities need to be clear. Team members need to be accountable for delivering. And if they're not, you need to find that right role for them or set those expectations or work with them. Like I said, I expect a lot of my team members. There's certain roles where we've had a lot of turnover in certain positions because we couldn't get the right person in that role and they weren't delivering. That's okay. They can go on and do different things. We put them in different places in the company. It's okay if a person doesn't work out in a role. You can put them in a different role or they can go someplace else and find a different role. You can have fun. You can be friends. You don't have to be, but you can be friends. You can work well together, but it needs to be clear you're a team and this is what you're working towards. And you need to have those strengths and those right people. I always use from the book, Good to Great. He talks about getting the right people on the bus. Like that's one of my favorite things is getting the right people on the bus in the right seats. And then again, it's fun to execute because if you put someone in a role where they can be successful, they likely will be successful if you point them in the right direction.
Absolutely. One of my favorite quotes is, the best player plays. And on our team, sometimes we'll throw in the best player for PR is this, or the best graphics person is that. But we all kind of know each other's strengths and then the best player plays so that we can win together. Yep. You talk about, having the right person on the seat. And I like that you also talked about sometimes you're not the right fit and that's okay. Go find the organization that you do fit with. To me, that comes back to core values. How do you use core values as a measuring stick for your team members?
So I bring it back to kind of the goals of the company and what you want the company to do. Honestly, some of the, the corporate, dozen different honesty, integrity, the AI generated BS, I kind of roll my eyes at.
I'm not talking about those kind of core values. Like the bullshit ones, they don't count.
But like I said, with the team's goals and what winning looks like each week, that should be tied back to a company and overall company goal where we want to go. And we need to make sure that in that role that they can deliver on those values, or we need to make sure that those metrics match that overall company goal.
Yes. Yeah. So, but if that person just doesn't have the capability because it's not in their DNA to have the tenacity or the innovation or the resourcefulness to get things done, they're not the right fit.
Right. Yeah. And like I said, we've had plenty of instances where we've had to move on to either let that person go, move that person into a different role, coach that person and say, hey, here's the areas where I feel like you can step up. Everyone doesn't have to do their job exactly the same. Everyone needs to play to their strengths, like you said. And that could mean one engineer or one product manager or one marketer might do things differently. For example, on our current team, we have brand managers that really kind of own each different brand. They all have different personalities, which is what we want because our brands have different personalities. So that's what we're doing is we're trying to work with them and bring those personalities to life and have so they don't all have to be the same person. We don't want them to be the same person or the same personality.
Yeah. So let's go back to keeping different personalities productive. What are your go-to tools or habits or processes to help you and your team stay organized? Again, this whole podcast is about getting shit done, right? Like, how do we execute? What are the other things maybe that you help to keep your team moving?
The BPR is a good one, our business plan review that we do every week. I have one-on-ones with every one of my direct reports every week. I know some managers don't do that. I feel like it's necessary, especially when you don't always work in the office. So our team is kind of hybrid right now. The marketing team is primarily remote. The engineers are kind of a hybrid and the product managers are kind of a hybrid. So they'll spend 2 to 3 days in the office and then they'll work from home the other times. So I think team members are more productive working from home a lot of times if they don't need to be interacting with those other team members on an ongoing basis. But over time, you start to get these, you start to miss out on the hallway conversations and overhearing the other conversations and building relationships with your team members. So partially to kind of compensate for working from home. And then also it's just been a practice that I've done for a long time is I just have a one-on-one with team members every week. And that's their chance to say, hey, here's my list of items that you need to know about or I need help with. With some team members, it takes 10 minutes. With some other team members, it takes over an hour. It just depends on the person and the personality. So that's one tool. I'm trying to think of any other. I always keep like a running task list. I think that's pretty much, and that's evolved from electronic to in my notebook, and then I would not get it done, and then I'd copy it in my notebook again. And now I have an index card that I just can move from day to day, and then I update the index card about every couple of weeks with just kind of my hot items that I need to get done.
It's funny. Yeah, I like to write things down as well. I mean, of course, I have electronic Google Calendar or whatever, but there's something about connecting my brain to my hand as I'm writing things out and the gratification of checking things off when I'm done.
And there's I find that a lot of times I won't look at that task list for a couple of days, but intuitively I've got about half of it done. Like part of it, it's like when you're learning. Part of writing it down is printing it in your brain, knowing I need to get this done. And then intuitively, when you get one thing done, you just naturally move on to the kind of the next.
Absolutely. One of the things you mentioned about not being in the office is a challenge I see with younger staff members that come in. It's that cross mentoring, and you talk about we would call traditionally the water cooler chat. I think some of the things we're missing is the opportunity for those that come early on into our organizations to hear how senior leadership handles conversations or how they make a sales call. Or that is a challenge I'm seeing as well, and trying to find ways to mentor our team remotely, and give them the opportunity to listen in when we can. I don't know if you came across that. Yeah.
I don't think there's a one magic bullet for that.
Yeah.
When you don't have people in the office working together every day, there will be holes. And I'm not saying the solution is force everyone in the office, because like I said, I think a lot of times people are more productive working from home. They could be putting in more time, or they're not spending the time on their commute. They're spending the time working, or they're more creative. There's a number of reasons why people are better at home, but there's also some things that we need to shore up and acknowledge and address. And that's one of them. And like I said, one of the things that we found, especially dealing with design, development, manufacturing, things like that, we will definitely, team members find it useful. It was interesting. So currently with Warren, we don't have any hard schedule, but it's interesting to see most of the teams have evolved to the point where they're all in the office a couple of days a week, because they can see that. The managers can see that and see, okay, we're getting the benefit with the team together. And they might schedule their team meeting, the weekly team meeting, when they're all there in person, right? So you can see it kind of, they naturally are evolving to this hybrid where, a couple of days from home or a few days from home are fine, but you need to have that medium to get together.
Yeah, I'm with you. We're a fully remote agency, but the same, we'll find we have a hybrid work environment where we'll get together for the creative strategic brainstorming sessions or for a client luncheon or just a team outing. But I also find that our team is more productive at home when we can dig in and do the deep work. I think oftentimes in businesses, we have so many meetings, we don't have time to actually do the deep work thinking that we need to do. And I love the quiet of, my office at home for that reason.
And there's nothing, and taking a positive from the company that I worked for that went out of business, that was very fun culture. I love happy hours. I love, pickleball tournament. I think that's great if you can get your team to do it, because those are the times where the team gets to know each other and a lot of the things come up that wouldn't come up otherwise. I'm fortunate because we have our events, and with our events, we have to have support staff at events, and we rotate. So I'll have an engineer that'll go to all of our major events just so they can get in front of the customers. It helps them understand the product, but then also so they can interact with the other team members. They can spend time with our driver that takes the truck to all the events, or they can spend time with, the person that's doing the marketing for that specific brand. And it's been a really good team builder for us, is to have the whole team at events. Especially, we started renting houses at these events instead of having hotels for, half a dozen or a dozen people. And that's even better, because the team, you can cook dinner together and the team gets to spend all this time together. It's helped me a ton to build relationships across the organization by just attending events.
Yes, absolutely. You're busting silos again. And in some ways, you're cross-training. The engineer now knows what it takes for the marketer to work the booth or the guy to drive the equipment there, and what alterations each of us might need to make to help the other teammate out. That's always been fascinating to me.
Yeah. And even, I don't know if it's more important, but also is the interaction with those customers at the event. So when someone comes up and says, I bought this product and it doesn't work, or what you said in your ad doesn't make sense, and they're looking at you, whether you're an engineer, a truck driver, a marketer, a salesperson, you got to answer their question. It makes people realize, oh man, like, this is how we represent ourselves to the customer. Luckily for us, it's mostly the other way. People come up and they say, oh, we love your brand. We love your products. It was 30 below zero, in the middle of nowhere, Montana, and I got stuck and the winch literally saved my life. So those kind of stories are so empowering to hear, and make you feel so proud to work with that brand and with that product.
Definitely. I was reading a book recently about, I think it was The Great Client Partner. And in it, there was a marketer and advertiser who sat in the office all day and was designing signs, but never actually went into the field. And it wasn't until a year later that person drove around with the delivery guy, it was a soda company, and saw that the signs that he so beautifully designed were just destroyed. And the truck driver was complaining about how stupid advertising was because they designed these signs for weather that looked terrible. So I guess the point I'm getting is stepping into your consumer's role or to other people's role to really fully understand what's going on is a game changer and can impact even more getting things done, I would say.
Absolutely. The other thing we started doing around our events is we'll go visit a couple off-road shops or power sports dealers, either before or after, or even sometimes during, if we have a ton of people at the event. So then you go in there and we're performing a sales role, and we're saying, hey, here's what's new with our products, here's what's going on. But then also you're listening to this customer and you're building this relationship with this. So for us, it's multi-steps. So we sell to a distributor. The distributor sells to a jobber or an off-road shop or a power sports dealer. And then that dealer sells to the consumer. So for us, we need to understand the perspective of the consumer, our distributor, and then also that retailer or that reseller that's selling the product. So it gives us, we started just doing that this year, and it's been phenomenal. There's more things that we're learning of how they're selling the product at an actual store that we had no idea. You know, the way it's packaged or the way we represent our features or the way they can display it. We've learned a ton. And then also it helps us from the sales standpoint too. We're helping the sales team to build the relationship, show the power of our brand, and help sell products.
I get so excited when you talk about these things because that is all about creating a really strong brand. It's the whole experience. It's not some logo or a tagline or values on a wall. It's how do we actually interact with our customers and build valued partnerships.
Absolutely.
You know, talking about listening, again, comes back to communication, going into their shop and understanding how they do business and what they need to do to succeed makes a strong brand partnership. And I love that you're doing that.
Yeah, we have to. Our products cost more. And they cost more because we do put the work in the brand. We build the majority of our products in the USA. So we have to stand behind that. We have to make sure that we're representing that brand and that it carries that premium. If not, customers will just buy, a cheap product with a no-name brand. Why get the Warren product? And it's for the Fab Fours or the Factor 55 or the Fab Tech. All of our brands are premium brands, and that's why we're providing that level of service, support, education behind it.
Definitely very high touch support that you offer. Really, I mean, Warren has been around over 75 years. So it's been able to build an impactful brand. Why? What would you say would be one of the biggest reasons it was able to last?
I think it goes, number one, it's the people. So that's why I work there. When I first went there on my interview, I was blown away by all the people that have been there 30, 40 years. And this is through multiple different owners. This is through rough times. These people have seen some, wage cuts, layoffs, they've been through some recessions and some rough times working for Warren, but they stuck it out. And it's because that the company, the brand, that brand value, and even if the leaders may lose sight of that for a couple of years, there's enough momentum and enough equity with that brand to carry them through. Because there's been some times in the past and some leaders in the company that haven't done the brand any good, just like any company goes through those, right? Those kind of peaks and valleys. But really, so there's great people there, and they believe in the product, they believe in the brand, and then great people attract great people, and it just kind of builds on itself.
To that team mentality, A players want to play with A players, right?
Yep, exactly. You wanna win, right? Everyone wants to win.
So what is next for Warren?
So we will continue to represent. So we have 4 pillars for our company or our brands. It's people, made in the USA. We have USA manufacturing, innovation, and then our brands. So it's supporting all those pillars, continue to get the right people on the right seats on the bus to support those pillars. And then we went through like a flurry of acquisitions a few years ago. We've kind of hit the brakes and said, okay, we need to do a better job of integrating and working, all these companies together. So in the future, I don't know for sure, but it wouldn't surprise me if we continue to grow. But we just need to make sure, or grow, acquire, things like that. We just need to make sure that we're supporting all these different brands and make sure that we have all the right players in the right place.
Well, it sounds like you're already on the right track with all the tools you talk about putting in place with your people.
It's fun. I love it. I love my job. I love the team. And granted, we have all kinds of issues. Every company does, right?
Yeah.
And I always tell my team members when they're complaining about, the problems here, the problems there, or this group's awful, I said, just have your pocket of greatness. Have your little pocket of greatness. And when you're really good at your job and people notice, then it's amazing how that affects others. So suddenly other teams notice and say, wow, they're doing really good. Like maybe we need to be, maybe people need to be talking positive about us. Or, wow, that makes me proud to work here. Like, I'm going to do better. It grows. It's just like negativity, right? It can be contagious.
Completely. Yes. Energy enthusiasm is definitely a force multiplier, whereas negativity is a cancer that needs to be cut out sometimes.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. I'm with you. So, yeah, so where our team is definitely, we've definitely had some really powerful wins. The team's doing really good and they're kind of have their pockets of greatness and they just continue to grow and influence others.
Well, it's pretty cool to be working alongside of all these brands and helping it grow as well. And of course, we love the off-road industry, so it is fun to connect and on a family level, get out there and play in the dirt, all those things. It helps to love what you do, right? So,
Absolutely.
what would be one piece of advice that you could share, whether it relates to getting shit done or company culture or communication, that one golden nugget of piece of advice you could give?
Well, I get having fun definitely makes a difference. You need to enjoy your job. So if that means that you need to be, and I've been throughout my career, I kind of had that realization. I started in aerospace and I worked there for 5 years and said, I've never even flown on this airplane. I was working on the 777, Boeing 777 at that time, let alone actually in the cockpit fly it. I'd never even ridden on one. And I thought, what am I doing? Like, so I got to the point where I said, okay, well, I'm either going to go to flight school and I'm going to get into flying, or I'm going to go find an industry where I can be into it, where I can test out the products. And that's when I ventured off, ended up in power sports, and then, ended up here, went in fitness for a while, ended up here, and working on products that are toys for customers. It's just so much fun. And being able to go on a trail ride or being able to go test the product with customers. It's just, there's nothing better. There's nothing better than running on the trails in Moab or, Sand Hollow, Utah, or out here in Oregon with a Jeep or a side-by-side with a Warn winch on it, and then handing out Warn stickers and customers saying, oh, we love your product. We love your brand. It's so fun. It's really fun.
It's definitely fun. And like you mentioned earlier, incredibly impactful because I've heard the stories through Fab Fours as well. If this bumper saved my life, those,
right.
Wow, we're creating products that save people's lives. That's really meaningful.
Yeah. Yeah. And also they're passionate about that, but they're also passionate about just having a real cool looking truck.
Yeah, that's you.
I got the best looking truck in town. It's because it has that Fab Fours bumper on it.
Look, I'm not going to lie. I kind of have the mall crawler and it is a very fancy grocery getter, but I love it. And it can go off-road is the point. It can.
Yeah, it's fun.
Maybe I'll be at Moab next year with my husband. Maybe.
Yeah. So I guess to answer your question, make sure you're in the right industry, that you enjoy it. And I'm not saying, people need to work on off-road products, or they need to work on whatever they're into outside of work. It's just, you need to find that culture and that company fit, or create it. If you're in a position where you can influence others and start to create that culture, and it doesn't need to be a manager, a supervisor, any employee. I've seen examples of employees say, listen, I want to affect the culture, and they just start doing it.
Yeah.
And you can, if you can see that this company could be kind of where you want to work for years to come, and you don't like the culture, start to influence it and do things to change it.
I'm so glad you said that because I've had so many different conversations with business leaders, managers who are not founders, CEOs, thinking they can't influence the culture. And I completely disagree with that because I do think culture can bubble from the bottom up as well. You can influence, just like you're doing, you're influencing your team. And then maybe that inspires other departments to jump in.
Absolutely. Yeah, it doesn't have to be top down. In fact, I had a harder time when I got promoted to vice president because I was used to just influencing from where I was at. And I got promoted to the higher level role. And I'm like, okay, I should be able to make some change here now, right? And then, things get bogged down in corporate politics. And I'm like, oh man, I'm no more effective now than I was, 3 years ago. So that was an adjustment for me, figuring out how to navigate that and deal with that. Things take time, but yeah, you can influence from anywhere.
Absolutely. And yeah, you started an internal newsletter to create that communication and bust silos that way. So I think just finding ways that you can make a difference.
The other thing that we're doing to kind of bridge that communication gap, we started doing a 1-pager each month. So it started off as a leave behind. So when we're going to events or when the sales team are visiting, power sports dealers or off-road shops, we could have a cheat sheet and say, hey, here's the 10 things that are going on with the Warren Group this month, and leave it behind. So we started doing that just for our own purposes there. And then I realized, oh, this is great to use with employees. So we have our whole sales and marketing meeting coming up right after this. I will lead with that. I will go through that one pager. So everyone on the sales and marketing team knows, hey, here's what the key things are going on this month. New products that are released, promos that are going on, events that are going on. And then we also print that out and we leave that in the lobby at our facility. So team members there can see, oh, take a Warren sticker, take a Fab Four sticker. Oh, here's what's going on. And then also when we have all hands meetings. So it goes back to what we first started talking about, is having that consistent message and just repeating it again and again. So this one pager is our way, internal and external, to try to get everyone on the same page, all telling the same story.
Yes. And what's great about that is you're using every possible tactic. You're hitting them in a digital newsletter, a printed format, an email, every which way.
Yep. Doing everything we can.
Great. Communicate.
Absolutely.
So one last question for you, which I didn't prompt you. I'm sorry, but maybe it'll come to top of mind. Everyone has a hype song, a get shit done song. I should have probably prepped you for this, but what would be your hype song, or maybe your off-road song? What song would you pop in or start to play?
Pretty much any old school metal or grunge, like anything Metallica. I love when I'm working out, or sometimes when I'm working, it'll be like old school metal. But then I've got this Pearl Jam thing where I travel, and I got the Beats headphones that cover your ears, so it's they're sound canceling. And when I travel now, it's all Pearl Jam, and it's like the soundtrack of I'm just walking through the airport and I can't hear. It's so relaxing. I don't hear all the BS, and it's like a soundtrack behind a movie where I'm just walking through the airport. So so my traveling music's probably Pearl Jam, but it's probably metal besides that.
That's so funny. It's great how music can impact your mood, right?
Yeah.
Jake, well, it's been a pleasure talking with you today. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. Anytime.
Thanks for listening to GSD with Jeni. If you found this episode helpful, share it with a friend. For more ways to GSD, you can also find me on LinkedIn at Jeni Buchholz, where you can sign up for my Maven Mindset newsletter, or follow me on Instagram at Maven Jeni. Until next time, go GSD, Mavens!